It was a warm summer evening in London. The streets were alive with the energy of people enjoying their night out in the heart of the city. A restaurant named Luxe d'Or stood out, its exterior draped in quiet elegance. This was not just any restaurant. Luxe d'Or had become the city's go-to place for the wealthy and the elite. Politicians, CEOs and celebrities alike filled its dining rooms on any given night. The owner, Henry Bellman, prided himself on maintaining a certain image of exclusivity. To Henry, this restaurant was not just a business, it was his whole identity. Henry Bellman, a man in his late 50s, had worked for decades to build his empire. His white hair was always neatly combed, his tailored suits pressed and spotless. He carried himself with the cool confidence of someone who had spent years collecting both wealth and influence. But beneath that carefully polished image, there was something darker. An unspoken set of beliefs about who should be welcomed into his establishment. Henry had never been loud about his biases, yet those who knew him closely understood what lay beneath his polite mask. Over the years he had made countless silent judgments about who belonged at Luxe d'Or and who did not. Though Henry never said it directly, he carried a special dislike for people of certain backgrounds. Only his closest workers ever noticed. This evening, as Henry stood near the entrance watching the guests arrive, a couple approached. They were dressed immaculate. The man wore a perfectly fitted black suit and the woman was in a graceful, elegant dress that shimmered under the soft streetlights. They walked with the kind of ease and dignity that could turn heads. But as Henry looked up at them, his practiced smile slipped. The couple was black. Henry's subtle shift in expression was something only those who knew him well would have noticed. His smile became a little tighter, his voice slightly colder, but he greeted them as he would anyone else, while quietly making silent judgments in his mind. To him, no matter how elegant they looked, they did not fit the image he wanted for his restaurant. "Good evening," Henry said with polished politeness. "Do you have a reservation tonight?" "Yes, we do," the man replied warmly. "It's under the name Ryan Montgomery." Henry glanced at his maître d'hôtel, who quickly checked the reservation list before giving a small nod. The couple had booked legitimately. Henry wondered how they had slipped through the cracks of his carefully guarded system. "Right this way," Henry said, leading them through the restaurant. As they walked through the dining room, Henry could feel the eyes of his usual guests, mostly wealthy and white, following the couple. He caught the raised brows, the quiet glances and the silent questions. To Henry, their presence was a disruption to the picture of his restaurant. Instead of guiding them to one of the prime tables in the center of the room, he led them to a small table near the kitchen doors. It was a subtle but deliberate move, a way of signaling to them and the rest of the diners that they did not quite belong. Ryan and his wife Claire exchanged a glance as they sat down. They had noticed the way Henry looked at them, the way he avoided seating them in the main area, but they chose not to react. After years of facing similar behavior, they had become experts at brushing it off. As Ryan pulled out Claire's chair, they silently agreed not to let this ruin their night. They had come to celebrate their 12th wedding anniversary, a milestone they had been waiting for. They wanted this evening to be special no matter what. "Thank you," Claire said softly as she Henry gave a stiff smile before walking away, but as he moved back to the entrance, he could not shake the discomfort in his chest. It was not just that they were black, though that certainly mattered to him. It was the way they carried themselves with confidence, as if they had every right to be there. And in Henry's mind, that challenged everything he believed. Back at the entrance, Henry quietly pulled aside his maître d'hôtel. "Keep an eye on them," he whispered. "Make sure everything's handled." The maître d'hôtel, long used to Henry's hidden instructions, nodded and went about his duties. Over the next half hour, Henry watched Ryan and Claire closely. He observed how they spoke quietly, their laughter occasionally breaking through the soft murmur of the dining room. They behaved perfectly, showing respect to the staff, following every unspoken rule of fine dining. Yet Henry still felt uneasy. Meanwhile, Ryan and Claire began to notice the pattern. The staff seemed reluctant to approach. The service was slow, almost as though their presence was unwelcome. Their appetizers took longer than expected, and when they finally arrived, they came with a weak apology from a nervous waiter. Ryan glanced at Claire and she returned the look with a knowing smile. They had seen this before, in other places and other cities. They knew what was happening, but tonight they were determined not to let it matter. This was their night, and no one, not even Henry Bellman, was going to spoil it. As the evening went on, Henry's irritation grew. He had hoped the couple's presence would cause them to feel uneasy but they remained calm, unshaken by the subtle slights. Henry was used to guests being humbled by the prestige of his restaurant. Yet Ryan and Claire seemed at ease, as though they belonged just as much as anyone else. That infuriated him. Unable to hold back any longer, Henry walked toward their table. Inside he was boiling, but outside he wore the cool expression he had perfected. "Good evening," Henry said with his smooth but cold tone. "I trust everything is to your liking." Ryan smiled politely. "Yes, everything's fine. Thank you." Claire nodded with calm grace. "We're having a lovely evening." Henry's forced smile wavered. Their calmness unsettled him. They were supposed to feel out of place, rattled by the exclusivity. Instead they were enjoying them. "That's wonderful," Henry said, though his voice was tight. "We pride ourselves on maintaining certain standards here. I just wanted to make sure everything was up to your expectations." Ryan answered evenly. "We've heard a lot about this place. We're happy we chose it for our anniversary." Henry paused. Anniversary? He had not expected that. For a moment doubt crossed his mind, but his pride held him firm. "That's nice," he said with a tight smile, "though I must admit I was a little surprised to see your booking come through. We don't often get—" He stopped, carefully choosing his words. "New guests at our establishment. I hope it has been worth your while." Ryan's face remained calm, though Claire noticed the edge in Henry's words. She placed her hand lightly on his arm, signaling him to stay steady. "Everything's been great," Ryan said, steady as stone. Henry gave a stiff nod and walked back to the entrance. But his thoughts were restless. He had crossed a line, yet instead of guilt he felt the urge to push further, to remind them they were outsiders in his world. Hours passed, and the tension only grew. When their main course arrived late, Ryan muttered under his breath, "We're not leaving until dessert." Claire smiled faintly. "That's the spirit." But Henry could not take it anymore. He walked back to their table, this time with an air of finality. "Mr. Montgomery," Henry said, his voice smooth but carrying a sharp edge, "I trust your evening has been satisfactory. Though I must say, this is not the kind of place one usually finds your type of clientele." The words hung heavy. The insult was no longer hidden. Ryan leaned back, calm but firm. "Our type of clientele," Henry held his ground. "We serve a very particular demographic here. Our guests expect exclusivity." Ryan leaned forward slightly, his voice steady. "We came to celebrate our anniversary. We belong here just as much as anyone." But Henry could not stop himself. "I'm afraid this is not the right place for you. I think it would be best if you left." The words landed like a hammer. Ryan and Claire slowly stood, still composed. They gathered their things, refusing to show anger. Ryan turned back once, his eyes calm but strong. "People always show you who they really are, Mr. Bellman. One way or another," Claire added softly. "Have a good evening." And with that, they walked out. Henry stood rooted at the entrance, a strange pang in his chest. He told himself he had protected his restaurant's image, yet something whispered inside him that he had made a mistake that would cost him dearly. The cost revealed itself days later. A sleek envelope arrived from a top law firm. Inside, a letter. A wealthy client was interested in buying Henry's restaurant chain for a price above market value. Henry's eyes lit up. Perhaps this was his golden chance. But when he walked into the law firm the next day and saw the investors, his blood froze. Ryan and Claire sat waiting, calm and composed, lawyers by their side. The couple he had humiliated days ago now held his future in their hands. They revealed their truth. They were powerful entrepreneurs with a wide portfolio in the hospitality business. They had not just come to celebrate their anniversary. They had been evaluating his restaurant as a possible acquisition, and now they were here to buy everything he had built. But with condition. Henry had to step away completely. No public role, no chance to open a rival restaurant. Silence was his only option. His pride wanted to fight, but when Claire warned that if he refused, they would reveal what he had done, Henry knew it was over. His reputation would not survive the scandal. Shaken and cornered, Henry signed the papers. Luxor was no longer his. Ryan and Claire took over, transforming the place. They made it inclusive, warm, open to everyone. Business boomed. The restaurant thrived more than ever before. Meanwhile, Henry, though wealthy, became a man forgotten, his name tainted, his influence gone. He tried once to book a table under his own name, only to be politely turned away. And so Henry lived with his regret. His arrogance and prejudice had destroyed the empire he thought was untouchable. Luxdar became a beacon of dignity and welcome, while Henry faded into the shadows. The lesson was clear: pride and bigotry can ruin even the most powerful. True success lies in treating every person with dignity and respect. Henry learned that lesson too late, but Ryan and Claire had always lived by it, and it was why they triumphed, while Henry was left with nothing but regret.